What is up, Nets fans? Welcome to our live Brooklyn Buzz. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Jack Manuell. What's up, Jack?
We're talking basketball, I think.
Yes, we are. We actually just did a show on the NBA Outlet talking to Porzingis trade. If you want to check that out, right on our YouTube page. But we're going to obviously talk Nets versus Spurs, and then we're going to talk about the D'Lo snub. We'll do the Spurs game first. So obviously, Nets coming in 28-24. Spurs are coming in 30-22. At home and San Antonio. Nets haven't won there since, what was it, Jack? 2002.
2002, I believe January 2002 or something around that range.
Yeah, so all the way back in the finals, that's seems like forever. That's 17 years ago, obviously, for those of you that can't do math. But, Jack, looking forward to this game, not looking forward to this game? What do you think?
It's one where I'm not very confident, Nick, because I think that the San Antonio Spurs are going to be, and we talked about this off wax, incredibly motivated to execute on both ends of the floor with Greg Popovich's sounding off them after the Phoenix Suns win. Like, they've won the game. So I think they'll be motivated to really get off to a good start. And if the Nets can hold off, we know that they like to hang around. We know that they've become a very good clutch team. We're going to have to get off to a decent enough start, at least hang around, because, against the best coach in the history of this sport, you can't have any lapses. And if we have any lapses throughout the game, we need to keep them to a minimum.
Yeah, I agree, Jack. I think the fact that he kind of went off on the team, said they disrespected the Suns, they disrespected the game of basketball. They're going to come out with energy. They're going to come out fundamentally sound. It's going to be important for the Nets to get off to a solid start. And that's been a problem for them in a couple of these games. They haven't had great first quarters, and it's come back to hinder them later in the game. So it's important for them to kind of get things going against a fundamentally sound team like the Spurs. They can't make those basic mistakes. They just got to capitalize on everything.
Yeah, I mean, loose balls, turnovers, nailing the three-pointer, every single thing to get this win, the Nets are going to have to execute, and, the rebounding battle, all those sort of fundamentals that the Nets do well, and obviously, sound defense, they're going to be crucial to even staying in the game, because this Spurs team, they just do it night in, night out. They've done it for the past 2 bloody decades.
And now DeMar DeRozan is expected to come back in this one. Do you think he'll see full minutes, or they might ease him back in?
I'm expecting him to probably play the full amount of minutes. We generally know that Pop doesn't like to play guys unless they're fully healthy. So I'm expecting him to play, a full array of minutes. And even if he doesn't, they've got some nice depth, and other guys can step up like Bertans, White, Forbes, these sort of guys. But he's going to be one to watch, and Trevion Graham will probably spend some time in him, as well as some other guys. As I mentioned in my Nets Republic pre-game piece.
For sure, yeah, definitely check out Jack's Nets Republic piece. Not only the preview of this game, his video breakdowns are excellent. Recently did D'Angelo Russell, Shabazz Napier. Jack, what would you say is an advantage for this Nets in this game? Where can they kind of capitalize on the Spurs? Is there one area that sticks out to you?
I think three-point shooting. I think that in terms of the volume that we put up, by virtue of the fact that you score more three-pointers than the other team, you get an extra point. So just by virtue, simple mathematics, if the Nets are shooting well from three, it's going to make things difficult for a team like San Antonio, who takes a very large portion of their shots from mid-range. And then at the same time, conversely, the Nets give away that shot like they don't care. So it's going to be an interesting sort of clash of styles, like we sort of mentioned, Nick. They can make that shot and may make it very well, because they have two of the best players, if not the two best players in the game at mid-ranges, and Rudy Gay is very good at that as well, and it's become a very good three-point shooter. So I think if we can make our three-pointers early, Joe Harris can get hot, D'Lo gets hot. When D'Lo's hot, he's going to be hot, and Shabazz, who was great last game from the perimeter as well, continues his form, then I think it can certainly help us, at least get an ascendancy on that side of the floor.
That's an excellent point, Jack, especially the mid-range defense. The Nets, like you said, they don't care if the other team shoots mid-rangers, but with a guy like DeRozan, he lives off mid-range jump shots. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Jared Allen. If they let him drop back, or they ask him to come up a little bit more to put pressure on him in that situation.
Yeah, I'm not confident if LaMarcus is playing the 5 of Jared Allen being on him. I mean, I think LaMarcus could really eat on him, and I think Ed Davis might have to play a larger role. I think he played less than 20 minutes the last game. So I think, we've talked about Jared Allen, his aggressiveness on both sides of the floor. He's going to need to be, very much engaged against, a guy who was named to All-Star tonight, despite the fact that, a lot of other people said that he probably doesn't deserve to be in there. He's certainly an All-Star worthy player, and has proven that for the past, nigh on decade.
Do you think this is a situation where almost Jared Allen should see more time with the bench unit than the starters? Obviously, he's going to start the game, but early sub for Ed Davis so he can battle with Aldridge, and then you let Allen kind of go against some of the backups?
Yes and no, because I think Pau Gasol could do this similar sort of thing in him. I think he's got that sort of veteran craftiness, which never sort of bodes well against a guy like Jared Allen. And I don't think Jared Allen has the same chemistry within the pick and roll and in terms of offensively with the guy like Shabazz Napier. Like I'd be very intrigued to see how many minutes they've played together this season. So I think he works better with a guy like D'Angelo Russell and obviously Spencer Dinwiddie, who's out injured. So I mean, if you can stagger those minutes, maybe. But at the same time, I think Jared Allen just needs to stay engaged on the defensive end and continue to rebound and stay aggressive and stay aggressive on both ends. If there's a shot there for him, if he can put it on the floor, draw some fouls because his free throw shooting has improved dramatically. So I think just he needs to have the right mindset heading into this game, and he can be a crucial part in securing this win.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jack. I don't think his chemistry with Shabazz is necessarily amazing. Like you said, they haven't played a ton of minutes. On the other hand, Shabazz and Ed Davis have some great chemistry. I think Jared Allen going up against Aldridge, yeah, he probably will get eaten defensively, but offensively, he's a lot quicker, a lot more athletic. They need to kind of take advantage of that with a pick and roll. Obviously, that's D'Angelo's game. I would expect the Spurs, they're going to throw out a lot of crazy defenses at you. I would expect them to probably double D'Angelo in this game.
I mean, we've seen it before, and D'Angelo has gotten used to it a lot more. Chicago doubled him. They blitzed him quite a few times, and he's been making the right decisions. 0 turnovers in that last game. Was it 7 assists, 30 points and 7 assists?
Yep.
So, I mean, if he continues that form, he's become a much smarter player. He's just going to need the guys around him to make some plays as well. It can't be all left on him. He can't bear the brunt of the load against a team like this. Against Chicago, you can leave it to a guy like Dillard to have a big couple of quarters. But against San Antonio, who have a very deep roster, have guys, two, bona fide all-stars, despite the fact that DeMar DeRozan didn't make it. Those two guys are going to wear you down on the offense and defensive end. So I think Dillard's going to need some help tonight. And guys like Joe Harris are going to have to hit their threes. Ronda Hollis-Jefferson's going to have to be a bit more measured. Rodion's is going to have to be a bit more measured as well. And like you mentioned, Jared Allen's going to have to be engaged. But yeah, it's going to be a team effort. And generally when we have that collective buy-in, guys, 7 or more guys scoring 10 points or more, that's when the Nets have looked their best. And we've reminisced on them having some very good performances.
And you mentioned the starters wasn't necessarily a great game for them last time, so hopefully some of them can step up, especially like you talked about with the blitzes and the double teams. D'Angelo usually has to make a pass to somebody in that high post, so it's going to be on other guys to make plays out of that or make the right pass to the open player.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be about the guys around, like we've sort of talked about. I think guys being in the right spot, helping out D'Angelo. I think Jared Allen's going to have to, we love his sort of slip screens, but I think these days, I think he's going to have to show a bit more physicality, put a body onto a guy like Derek White, who's going to be probably all up in his face and give D'Lo some space because we know he doesn't have the greatest athleticism, but when he has all the space in the world, he's been making the right decisions. His bounce passes have been phenomenal. His in-motion passes to guys on the run and guys cutting have been sensational. So if he's given time and space, he can make the right decisions. We just need to be able to give him that and that his teammates need to as well.
Yeah, and keep up with the off-ball movement. Obviously, Joe Harris is excellent as that. He's got a couple of backdoor cuts that led to easy layups for him. Maybe some more from the other guys. Rodion's had a nice connection with D'Angelo. We got to stay active against a team like San Antonio, who's going to play some very good defense. Now, Jack, talking D'Angelo, obviously he was snubbed. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Do you think he'll come out with some extra juice in this game?
Yeah, I mean, D'Angelo has been saying the right things for the past 2 seasons, ever since he was a Brooklyn Net, against the Lakers. It's like, it's just another game. But these guys, and I think Michael Grady said this on a podcast as well, you take it with a grain of salt. These guys are human beings, and you're coming up against former teams. You've got that motivation. You've got that ego about you that just shows, look, I deserve to be an all-star. I'm playing all-star worthy basketball. I'm an Eastern Conference Player of the Week and probably in contention for Eastern Conference Player of the Month. It's pretty astounding that he's not there, but we probably should see him, hopefully, as a replacement for Victor Oladipo, which we'll talk about. But I expect him, like D'Angelo always does. He's been very consistent. And even when he's not doing the right things and not playing his best, he's still been able to impact with other guys as well. So the consistency that we've seen from D'Angelo is what I want to see more of.
Yeah, 100%. Just continuing to impact the game, especially when you start to get these double teams, is going to make your life a lot more difficult. Now, Jack, what are 3 keys for the Nets to win this game?
I mentioned, and I'm going to reference directly from my Nets Republic article, 3-point shooting, rebounding, and defensive engagement. So 3 sort of simple things that we've sort of touched on quite a bit in terms of the past couple of minutes, Nick. But I think if we can do all those 3 things well, then we secure the W. If we, have any lapses in any forms of those sort of things, like we shoot, 30% or under, we lose the rebounding battle, or, we play some sloppy defense and we turn the ball over a lot, then I think it's going to be very hard to get a win against a very good team, the San Antonio Spurs.
Great points, Jack. I agree with all of them. And I think, like you said, we need to shoot better than last game. That goes from the field, the three-point line, and also the free throw line, which has been kind of rough the last few games. I'd like to see them pick up in that area, especially if they continue to get to the free throw line at such a high rate.
Yeah, I mean, we've looked great when we push the pace and we get into the restricted area. D'Lo's been doing that a little bit more. Got a little bit of traction on a tweet that I put out about his sort of improved driving, despite the fact that he's still not great at finishing around that sort of 3 to 5 foot area or 0 to 5 foot area. He's still showing that aggression, which for me is as big a thing as his general finishing in general. So Shabazz has shown some nice form around there as well. It just opens up the floor, like we've talked about at length, Nick. If you can get into the paint, it opens up the lanes for guys like Joe Harris, Rodion Skurtz, all these sort of guys to nail the threes. Damari Carroll, I think, has been very good there as well. And I think he's going to be as important as ever in this sort of game, as will all of our reserves, because we have a heavy reliance on the team sort of effort. And it's going to be like, who we are trying to emulate. This is the San Antonio Spurs, a franchise who we aim to become. Sean Marks is a pedigree of that organization. And, these are the sort of games, that you can sort of test yourself against the best and, where you sort of start to make a name for yourself. And we've had those moments this season. It could be another one tonight.
Yeah, and you mentioned D'Angelo getting inside and getting to the rim, not even making the layups. Having a guy like Ed Davis around who can clean up, Jared Allen's improving that area. I think it just provides more opportunities, especially if you're sucking in the big men in that situation. And like you said, it's a good challenge for the Nets to see where they're at. Obviously, they're banged up without Dinwiddie, LeVert, Crabbe, Dudley. But if they were able to beat the Spurs on the road right now, I think it would send a really good message for the team, because this, like we mentioned, is a team they haven't beaten San Antonio in a long time. And it seems like this season the Nets are breaking record after record after record.
Yeah, and I think you got to get some of these unexpected wins in these tough stretches, be it like a month or a few weeks. And I think, when we come up against teams like Milwaukee, Orlando away from home, which I believe will still be a pretty tough matchup, you got to steal some of these W's that you're not expected to. And the Nets have done that on occasion, and they're going to have to continue to solidify their spot, because despite the fact that Miami, Detroit, Orlando, Washington are having some losses here and there, it shouldn't affect our form and how we play our game and how we attack this sort of stretch, heading into the All-Star break.
Yeah, 100%, Jack. Now, Jack, this player will have a big game for the Nets to win.
You've said Jared Allen before.
You got to bring that up, huh, Jack? He was terrible that game.
I mean, I'm just saying. I'm going Jared Allen tonight. I don't expect him to, maybe I'm hoping for a double-double, but it doesn't have to be like, a 23 and like his first 2020 game against Houston. He's going to come up against some decent competition. But I want to see, a highlight block on LaMarcus or DeMar DeRozan trying to dunk. I think that if he gets one of those and it gives him some energy, I think it could go a long way. So I'll put Jared Allen in there. Yeah,
and it's a tough, DeMar DeRozan's not an easy guy to block. He's great at drawing contact, getting to the free throw line, something to keep an eye on there, not getting in foul trouble. I can't go with Jared Allen again because he let me down last game. I'm going to go with D'Angelo in this situation. I think he has the extra juice. I think he's going to be angry. Like, let's be honest. Like, he's balled out. He's deserved to be an all-star, and this will kind of be a segue to our next segment. He's going to have some extra energy. The only way he probably doesn't have a big game is if the Spurs really make a team effort to prevent that, which could be a real possibility. If you had to pick a secondary guy to have a big game, if, like, let's say D'Angelo or Jared Allen are getting a lot of attention, is it your boy Joe Harris?
I think I'll go Damari Carroll.
I like it.
I don't think I've given him I think we've given him credible love, but I think that I haven't done any player breakdowns on him, so maybe I haven't. But I think
you're a jerk, Jack. You're just a jerk.
My bad. The swag daddy's got too much swag for me to handle. But I think Damari Carroll is going to be super important against teams like this. You need that veteran leadership. You're going to need, those defensive plays, drawing those fouls, because I think a team like San Antonio is going to be a lot more careful in the way that they defend, their opposing team. So if Damari's hitting his three, making some plays off the dribble, kicking out, he's got, some good chemistry with some of the other guys as well. I think it's going to be very important.
Yeah, I agree. DeMauri's been amazing over the last month. Not only just his scoring, getting to the free throw line, it's been a lot of the small things. Not only offensively with the cuts and the movement and just finding the open space, but defensively as a help defender. He does a great job of knowing when to help and when not to help and which guys he can kind of cheat off of. But Jack, final predictions on this game before we talk about the D'Lo snub.
I'll go San Antonio by 10. And for those that don't like my prediction, half the time I've predicted a loss, we've got a win. So, be happy with that loss prediction.
And if you still don't like it, you can follow him on Twitter at the JManJBT and give him a hard time. For me, I cannot not pick a Nets win, so I'm going to go with the Nets by 4. All right, so I got some confidence. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'm making that up, but we'll see what happens. Now, talking D'Angelo snub, he did not make the All-Star game, which was somewhat of a surprise because I believe a lot of people in terms of media had thought that he would get in the game, and the All-Star reserves ended up being Bradley Beal, Blake Griffin, Kyle Lowry, Chris Middleton, Victor Oladipo, Ben Simmons, and Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah, I think that literally half the roundtables that we have seen have all selected, D'Angelo Russell. You tweeted from the OTG account, our boy J.A. Skeets of the starters. Is taking on our violent nature in terms of, starting a riot. Flatbush and Atlantic is gone worldwide, ladies and gentlemen. So I think, it'll be, we'll have to wait and see, whether, who Adam Silver selects out of the coaches' votes next. Is it Jimmy? Is it Eric Bledsoe? Is it our boy D'Angelo? No, it's just, I think D'Angelo in terms of, the long-term credibility that he's built up is probably third on that list. Obviously because he's the youngest, and generally young guys don't get enough love from their coaches. Hence why Luka wasn't an all-star. Obviously, he was on the precipice, and even a guy like Tobias Harris, who is younger than guys like LaMarcus Aldridge and stuff, but is probably having as good, if not better, a season in terms of his efficiency. So if D'Lo isn't selected, I'm not going to be surprised, but I'm certainly going to be angry.
Yeah, I think the thing for D'Angelo, like the argument for him is he's the best player on this Nets team that's in the playoffs. They're the 6th seed. They're 4 games over 500. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, and he's been able to kind of steady the ship for them. A lot of these other guys, yeah, they're having great seasons, but they're more of the 2nd or 3rd best player in their team. And you look at a guy like Kyle Lowry, who I think's only played 31 or 32 games this season, and then a guy like Chris Middleton, who's just not having a career year. He's been benched in games this year. And I want to say against like the New York Knicks. So I think the D'Angelo case, I think there's 1 or 2 guys in the squad, and I even brought up on the NBA outlet, you could make a case for him to get over Vucevic with the Magic being 11 games under 500. So I think there's plenty of reasons for Nets fans not to be happy that D'Angelo's not in there.
Yeah, Brian Fonseca has just tweeted out a couple of minutes ago that the NBA TNT crew, Ernie, Shaq, Kenny, and Chuck, say that D'Angelo should be the replacement. So I'm enjoying a lot of the love that we're getting from the TNT crew. It's making me enjoy the antics of Shaq and Chuck. Chuck's obviously Dunwoody, and the way that he says Spencer Dinwiddie is obviously quite humorous as well. But it's hard to say whether he gets in, Nick, because I want him to be there. He should be there. His form has been outstanding. He's probably been, out of those 3 players, the form player over the past month or so. And you've done plenty of tweet breakdowns in terms of his stats. He's been sensational. And if you're looking at a team that's risen from the abyss and has already matched their last season's total, a lot of that early season was due to Karis LeVert. But since that injury, it's been D'Lo and Spencer Dinwiddie. And in the absence of Spencer Dinwiddie, D'Lo has held down the ship.
100%, Jack. I agree with you. It's nice to see him get some exposure by the TNT crew because we know they don't watch a ton of basketball, so that means it must really stick out. But I really don't know what to say. Like I'm kind of surprised. Like I thought going tonight, I was pretty confident. I didn't even really worry about it that he wasn't going to get in, and now it's like, wow, he didn't get in. And if Jimmy Butler got in over him, I think I'd be upset because no way does Philly deserve 3 All-Stars. Like their season's just not that great to get 3 All-Stars.
It's not, but at the same time, I think that it's hard to explain, how the coaches go about this voting. And I don't think, we saw the Rudy Gobert snub. And I think Coach David Thorpe tweeted out the fact that, coaches preach defense more than any other thing in terms of, you got to play defense, yet they don't vote probably the current defensive player of the year into the All-Star game. They're just bullshitting that. And obviously D'Angelo Russell isn't great defensively, but he's shown some major strides there. And, in some of my breakdowns of him, he's had some really good steals. Obviously, it's not he's never going to be a Victor Oladipo or a Kyle Lowry in that sense of the imagination, but he's made improvements across his entire game. So I don't know how you can't reward that. But this league, man, I mean, there's plenty of things that can happen that surprise us.
Exactly. I mean, even last year, obviously, Dragic got over Ben Simmons, so that was a huge surprise. Like you said, defensively, D'Angelo's definitely made strides, where I'd say he's had one or two excellent defensive plays at least every game over this last month.
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes to him and the coaching. Obviously, Coach Kenny Atkinson, the relationship. The coaches and players have a very symbiotic relationship, especially in basketball. And we see players take on the personality of their coaches, and teams take on the personality of their coaches. And that is a good thing for us because we have a coach who has, a very driven personality, a very measured personality, but also a very passionate and motivated personality. So, D'Angelo has taken on a lot of those qualities, and, the relationship between those two, as our guy, Anthony Puccio, tweeted out in his article, has grown and grown. And hopefully it translates into an all-star appearance for our boy D'Lo. But if not, he's going to be there hopefully for years to come.
Yeah, hopefully, if not this year, definitely next year. Jack, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I mean, I'll put this to you, Nick, before we end. Would you rather have a win tonight against San Antonio or D'Angelo Russell in the All-Star game as a replacement?
I'm always taking the W. I think D'Angelo probably is taking the W too. Actually, Jack, I got one more question. We know Porzingis was traded, but if you were the Nets and he was still on the table, what would be the best offer you would throw at New York?
Jared Allen, a first, an unprotected first. Maybe Dinwiddie or Levert. I think you have to throw in someone of current value out of those.
I'm just kidding.
Surely, if you as Sean Marks, you have to throw in one of those guys or D'Angelo, one of those, despite the risk factor. I know our boy, was it Mike or was it Dalton that did the trade for the trade deadline marathon?
Dalton.
Yeah, so obviously his deal worked out very well because it was like 1 day and a first and stuff. And obviously it wasn't ever going to happen because the Knicks and the Nets. It's just like it's like I don't know the Mets and the Jets. Are those two
the
American
Mets and the Yankees? The Mets and the Yankees. There you go.
There we go. Baseball, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea, but yeah, I think it's unlikely to happen. But what would you do, Nick? I mean, obviously you have heavy ties to a lot of these guys.
Yeah, we're all bros. No, like you said, it wouldn't really happen because it would just be such terrible PR for the Knicks, like to trade their best player across to a different borough in the same city. Like that just sounds horrendous. Same thing, kind of like the reference you brought up with the Mets and Yankees. The Mets have had players they've wanted to trade and they've kind of refused to trade them to the Yankees just because PR-wise. But I think you could probably have gotten, based off the deal they did, like I don't think the deal they just made, it depends also if the Nets are willing to take on like more salary because I think that was a big sell. So maybe you're taking on Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr. You're sending out Jared Allen, maybe Rodions, and 2 first-round picks. Like I think that would be a possibility. Maybe you have to put Musa in there. Maybe you have to put Dinwiddie in there, but Dinwiddie can't be traded to the offseason anyway because of his extension. So it'd be tough. But I think if you're giving up Jared Allen and multiple picks, like that's a really good move for them. And if you were to get Rodions and Musa, depending on how many picks they wanted. And also, I think it depends on the salary thing, too, because they obviously a big push of the deal was so they could get max cap space to sign no one.
Yeah, I mean, the Nets love to have that flexibility, and they're not sort of tying their hopes to anything like New York and their front office seem to be with this year's free agency. At least that's what I hope Sean Marks is doing. I don't want him to give, a max contract to with DeMarcus Cousins or something. So I think maintaining that flexibility and, building and going forward with, young pieces and flexibility to, add guys and in the draft as well and having all of those assets available. Kristaps Porzingis would be pretty awesome in the black and white. And who knows, it could still happen because, if he takes that qualifying offer, who knows what might happen. But
he really loves New York as well.
Where else are you going to maintain a relationship with an Instagram model like Jen Selter, Kristaps? They don't have those girls there in Dallas, baby. You got to kick around in Manhattan, kick around in Brooklyn. We don't care if you're still living in Manhattan, baby. as long as you're taking the train down, catch the NQR or the 123, whatever it might be. You can do what you want, Kristaps. But we'll treat you like the unicorn you deserve to be.
Yeah, and obviously Sean Marks has a lot of interest in him. It's been leaked earlier this year. The Woj reported the Nets are one of the teams that were kind of pursuing him. Does I asked you this on the NBA outlet, but I got to ask for our Brooklyn Buzz viewers and listeners. Do you feel more confident now about the Nets signing a big time free agent this summer, or it hasn't really changed your opinion?
It's somewhat, like I mentioned on the outlet, reflecting on it even a little bit more. I don't think it really changes much. I think obviously it allows the Knicks to have the room to sign two max guys. So if they want to get the bros like a KD, Kyrie, or Kawhi, or whoever it might be, it certainly makes them a more alluring destination in terms of the money. But at the same time, if the Nets obviously can sign one guy, obviously it depends on the status of D'Angelo Russell if they want to sign two, and one day Hollis Jefferson as well. No, I don't think it really changes much, Nick. I don't think the Nets do business based off what others do. And, in the past, that's something that I probably couldn't have said. But this franchise focuses on what they can control and what they can do going forward that can improve their franchise.
No, I agree in that aspect that they focus on themselves, but I do think it benefits the Nets because let's say the Knicks aren't able to get two guys to want to commit to one team, especially when you look at the Knicks roster, there just isn't a ton there. There's some young guys, but they're very raw. If somebody wanted to come to New York and win, they would look at Brooklyn first. They wouldn't look at the Knicks, where you could have made the argument maybe the Knicks made more sense because Porzingis is such a sell, being, a top 25, top 30 player when healthy. Now the Nets have possibly D'Angelo Russell if he's retained, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, Rodion Skroods, other guys in this team, Joe Harris on a great deal, Shabazz Napier, Trevion Graham. Like, there's already pieces there. And then you make the argument maybe they move Allen Crabbe, they want to open up more cap space. So I think it helps the Nets and makes them more enticing for a superstar that wants to win and wants to play in New York.
Yeah, I don't hate all those points as well, Nick. Obviously the assets that we currently do have, like you mentioned, in D'Angelo, Spencer Dinwiddie's under cost control for some time, as is Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Rodion Skroods, Jana Musa. The only really bad contract we have, like you mentioned, is Allen Crabbe, which can probably be moved in a dump, or he could be bought out, or he could come back and, exceed all of our expectations and become, a serviceable player again. So there's plenty of flexibility, plenty of options for Sean Marks and the Nets franchise.
100%. As always, Jack, pleasure talking Nets with you. We'll be back after the game talking post-game recap and what's going on. Appreciate everybody listening. Be sure to shoot us some questions or comments during the game, after the game, whatever you want to hear. We'll be happy to talk about it. Peace out, guys.